Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for DEP Lunchtime Live. I'm Deb Klenotic, Deputy Communications Director at DEP in Harrisburg. As we look forward to enjoying these last weeks of summer outdoors, black flies would like to be there with us. Black flies, which are commonly called gnats, would emerge in huge numbers from our rivers and streams were it not for the DEP Black Fly Control Program. Today, aquatic biologist Doug Orr explains how the program works to reduce black flies naturally in 35 counties to enable Pennsylvanians to enjoy the outdoors. We welcome your questions. If you're watching on Facebook, just write your question in the comments. If you're watching on WebEx, look in the bottom right corner for the chat icon. Click on that and the chat box will open up. Be sure to use the drop down to choose all panelists and then write your question and hit enter. Our program will be about 30 minutes. Doug will speak for about 20 minutes and then he'll answer your questions. And now we'll hear from Doug Orr.
Afternoon, everyone. As she said, I'm Doug Orr. I've been with the department for roughly 27 years doing black fly and mosquito work. We also do some tick work in our program. We're termed vector management is the overarching program for black fly, tick, and mosquito. Today we're going to discuss black flies in Pennsylvania. Next slide. So the goal of the black fly suppression program is to reduce adult black flies, which are gnats, to tolerable levels throughout the spring and summer seasons. We want to give everybody the chance to enjoy the outdoors without being swarmed by gnats, but also there is a portion of the population who have bad reactions to gnats and can have some medical conditions caused by severe biting. They have severe reactions to it. So there's a combination of just the nuisance level for most people, but also a medical need for some other people, some of the population. In our goal there, it mentions environmentally compatible methods. We use an organic material, and we'll get into that a little later. I'll explain a little bit more about what we use to control gnats. And again, we say reduce populations because we will not eradicate black flies. It's an impossible thing to do without heavy-duty chemicals and broad spectrum control, and we do not do that. We are under DEP, and we are very concerned about the environment, so we use very safe, environmentally compatible methods. Next slide. So on the picture here, you can see on the left, the young girl is looking up in the air. There's a lot of dots around her head. Those are black flies swarming her. She's at a camp, and that's in north central Pennsylvania. That's actually one of our staff's daughters. And that was during a period where we didn't have good control of black flies in that area, and there was a pretty strong swarm around her head. The picture directly to the right of her is an actual picture, well blown up, of a black fly biting human skin. Now, when a black fly bites you, it's a female black fly. Only females bite. They need a blood meal to lay their eggs. So their goal is to, they actually scrape open your skin a little bit and get blood flowing. They'll inject an anticoagulant and an antihistamine. So that's why they can feed before you really know that they're biting you. The biting and burning sensation you get from a black fly bite comes after they've already started to feed. So a lot of times you don't know you're being bit until after the black fly has been, biting you for a few seconds or a minute. The other pictures to the right is the back of a young girl's neck. She is one of the people who has severe reactions to black flies, and I shouldn't say severe, she's kind of like a moderate reaction level. There are people that when they get bit by a black fly will have a reaction the size of a golf ball. So some people react differently to black fly bites. In the lower right-hand corner, that's actually the belly of a dog that was attacked by black flies. So it's not just humans. Black flies also go after other mammals, including horses, dogs, that type of thing. So you can see how severe the reaction was for that dog. Okay, next slide. So what are we talking about when we say black flies? It's kind of misleading. Not all flies that are black are black flies. Black flies is the scientific name used for gnats. You know, the common name here in Pennsylvania, when you have your hand over your head swinging at the gnat, you know, they're gnats. Some people call them buffalo gnats because they have a big hump in their back, but more commonly they're just known as gnats. But not everything is a gnat. To the upper right corner, you can see house flies, and then there's deer flies in the lower right corner, and then fruit flies, which we're all used to, you know, at one time or another. They're just a little larger than the black flies that we target for our program. So that's just a good comparison there, that you can see the different size of flies that we have. We also get complaints for like mayflies and caddis flies, but our program solely focuses on gnats. Okay, next slide. So black flies have four portions of their life cycle. Sorry, you have egg, larvae, pupae, and adult. And a lot of people get confused when you hear we're treating streams and rivers for black flies when the adults are around you, bothering you, and you're up on land. So what happens is the adults will come in, the females will lay eggs in the stream. They need fast-flowing, clean water, which Pennsylvania has plenty of. And once they lay their eggs in the water, a single female can lay up to 500 eggs. So a small black fly can lay a tremendous amount of eggs. They bounce off the water and lay their eggs. Those eggs stick to just about anything like vegetation, rocks, debris, anything in the stream. As long as it's fast flowing and clean, those eggs will hatch and turn into larvae. Now, I mentioned that black flies need fast flowing clean water. So they won't be in ponds, they won't be in lakes or, you know, drainage basins or anything like that. And the other thing that's going on is the program has actually been expanding over the years, because in the 70s we passed the Clean Water Act. And as we've been cleaning up the pollution from, you know, all the way back to the 1800s, the more streams we clean up, the larger the area black flies move into. So as we clean up a stream, they'll move in and lay their eggs and they'll thrive in there. Most recent example is in western Clinton County here in Pennsylvania. We had a section of the west branch of the Susquehanna River that for years, since the beginning of the program in the 80s, has not produced any black flies. There was a lot of acid mine drainage in that section of river. There was also some thermal pollution from a power plant. Those pollution sources have been cleaned up. We've done some acid mine remediation and mitigation, and we've also done mitigation on the thermal pollution coming out of a power plant. That has opened up that waterway and cleaned it up to now where we have to treat. We added roughly 20 miles of river and Cinemahoning Creek up in the Renovo area because there's so many black flies now using that waterway to breed in. So we've added that. So we do adjust as we find new areas of clean water where black flies are moving into. The larvae in the streams, they feed on organic material that's flowing by them. So what we do is we bring helicopters, and we also use backpacks, into fast flowing stream areas, and we have pilots who we hand maps to. We tell them where to go and treat, and they'll put this organic material, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, into the water. The black flies eat that organic material, and then in turn that'll kill them. Now it's very species specific. It kills black flies and mosquitoes. It's a great material. It's very safe, and we've been using it for 30 plus years, and we have no trouble. It does not impact non-target species like fish or frogs or salmon, anything like that. It's very specific to like mosquitoes and black flies. If we don't treat, the larvae will turn into pupae. They stop feeding, and it takes a day or two until they emerge as adults. Once the adults start to merge, you can have billions of them coming off each day, and they can fly up to 20 to 25 miles away from that stream. So if you don't live near a stream and you think, why do I have black flies if I don't live even close to a stream? If you're within a 20 to 25 mile radius of a stream that produces black flies, you can have black flies around your area. Okay, next slide. So here's some common habitat for black flies. The upper left-hand corner there is the Clarks Ferry Bridge down in Dauphin and Perry County area, down near Duncannon. Right below you can see a rather large rift. We target that with our helicopters. And then there's some other, I think the middle picture there is the Juniata River. And then we have some pictures there of leaves and rocks and grass that are just loaded with black fly larvae. All the little lines you see, the worm type looking things, those are all black fly larvae. So that's what we look for when we try and target black flies. Next slide. So here's an up-close picture of a rock that's just loaded with black fly larvae. There's literally thousands of larvae on that rock, and that rock is probably about 12 inches big. So you can picture if that's one rock out of a stream, and you have millions of rocks and, you know, hundreds of riffle areas in the stream, you can imagine if we weren't spraying for black flies, how many black flies would infest the area? They just come off into billions. Okay, next slide. So here's some biologists. I'm in the lower right corner there, and you can see how we get out into the streams, and this is us conducting sampling. We use jet boats, which have no propeller. They use water as a, to propel us, so we can get into the very shallow areas where the black flies lay their eggs and hatch. We never treat a stream until we've sampled it. We make sure that there's black flies present in the stream. And once we collect these samples, our biologists will either drop them off at the lab in Harrisburg, or if they're in one of the outer regions, they'll ship them overnight. We have a shipping system set up where the samples are into the lab by the next morning. We have taxonomists who put these samples under the microscope and they'll identify them to species. And there's roughly 50 plus species of black flies in Pennsylvania. We only treat for 4, and it's one small group called Similium jenningsi group. When we find that specific target species, those are the ones that we know bother humans and swarm around humans. That's the species we target. If we don't find that species, we don't treat the stream. So we're very specific and very targeted at what we do. We just don't go out and spray a stream because it has black flies. It has to have the target species present before we'll bring in the helicopters and treat the river or stream. In the middle there, you can see some small yellow boats. Those are actually motorized kayaks we use to get into some remote areas. And otherwise, we'll walk in from the edge of the rivers or streams to sample. Next picture. So here's a picture of the state of Pennsylvania broken up into 3 contracts. We have aerial contracts with a private contractor that's actually based out of Gettysburg, Helicopter Applicators. And the lower right corner is the Delaware contract. The middle blue shaded area is the Susquehanna River contract, and the yellow orangish color is the Ohio contract. So each of those shaded counties is actually a participating county in the program. We currently have 35 counties that participate. It's up to the county whether they want to participate or not participate. So part of the process we go through is talking with county commissioners and deciding whether they want to participate in the program. Counties are required to contribute a portion of the spray costs. The counties pay roughly between 20 and 25% of the cost of the spray for their county, and the state picks up the lion's share of between 75 and 80%. So the 35 counties that are shaded there are the current ones that are participating in the program. We've been as high as 40 counties. Some drop out because of some past maybe financial, or maybe they just don't believe they need the program. It's up to the commissioners in that county to decide. All the blue streams that are shaded are all streams that we treat. So there's roughly 48 streams throughout the state right now that we treat. We treat roughly 1,725 miles of stream current. Next slide. So I spoke about the organic material we use. It's called Vectobac 12AS, and there's a second product called Vectobac SC. We use the SC in the Susquehanna River, and the 12AS is used in creeks and clearer rivers like the West Branch. Organic material can impact the material we use. So there's two different mixtures. One is a little more focused on organic rich water like the Susquehanna, and that would be the SC, and the other one would be 12AS. It's a biological pesticide. It's not a chemical. It's not a contact killer. Like I said earlier, the larvae have to feed on it to die. And it's very specific once it gets into their gut. Other insects or mammals, fish, anything else comes in contact, it doesn't hurt them. They don't have the specific metabolic pathways needed for this pesticide to work. So it's very safe. It's actually used in organic farming. BT products are very readily available at a hardware store. You can use them to put in your bird baths and things for mosquitoes. It's the same product, but we use it in the rivers for black flies. So it came from a soil bacteria, and then it's basically brewed in like an old beer factory. Honestly, at times they can brew them in large vats, and then we get this material in a liquid form, and our helicopters go out and spray it into the river. As I said, it's ingested through filter feeding, and again, I just want to reiterate, it's not a chemical or a contact killer. It's a very specific organic, species-specific organic product. Okay, next slide. So here's a picture of our helicopter coming across the river down near York and Lancaster counties, just near Wrightsville. So right below them, the helicopter to the left, you can see the formation of a riffle. So we basically tell the pilots, we calculate, the biologist from DEP calculates how many gallons of material it will take per site. We tell the ground crew to put that many gallons of BTI in the helicopter, and then we hand the pilot a map and say, this is the exact site you're going to spray. We have a line on the map. These helicopters are also tracked by satellite, so we know exactly where they are and exactly where they're putting the material out at any time. It's a very specific, safe, and long-running project. We have an incredible safety record. So this is just a picture of what you would see if you would witness a black fly control operation on the river. Next slide. So this is a close-up of one of our helicopters coming across the North Branch. The bridge pier you can see there to the left is actually the Route 80 bridge across the North Branch of the Susquehanna. And you can see how low the helicopter gets. We want them very low and very slow so the material isn't flying all over the place. It comes out of the helicopter. Basically, it looks like chocolate milk. Like if you would take a jug of chocolate milk and just dump it, that's how this material comes out of the helicopter on the side of the port there. It hits the river, and we usually go about 50 yards above the river. That gives the material time to mix in. And then as it flows down through that grass patch, the larvae will feed on it, and that material will carry for about a mile or two, and it will remove all black flies for that mile or two, and then we move upstream and we'll do the next riffle, a couple miles upstream. So that's basically, how we do this, and we move all day. We start probably down in like York County, and we'll move up to the New York border. So we will treat the whole entire Susquehanna River in like a day and a half. Next slide. The second option is backpack sprayers. Now we do this in smaller streams where there's a lot of tree canopy or very steep canyon walls or something like that that would prevent our helicopters from safely getting into the stream to treat. So we do have the option of using a backpack with the BTI in the stream, and this is one of our biologists out there actually doing a treatment. This is a stream down in the southeast that they treat by hand. Next slide. So the black fly program has a very data-rich and has a lot of explanation about black flies and also the black fly program. The public website there is at the top. You can log on there and you can read a lot about black flies, not just in PA, but we also have links to some other places. There's also a lot of information on there about the black fly biologists who cover your region. So if you have any questions about black flies, you could go on there and find out who you need to call in your area and who would cover your county. There's also information on there about black fly life cycle and their biology, the material we use, the history of the black fly program. So there's a lot of information on there that you could look up if you have any questions. And then below that, you can see my direct contact information. You can email me, call me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And the other point I wanted to bring up about the website, the public website, there is a complaint form on there. So if you are experiencing black flies, Pennsylvania is a pretty big, area. We try and cover everything we can, but there are times there's black fly problems that we aren't aware of, and we use public information to help us, find those areas where we might not know that there's a black fly situation occurring. So feel free to go on the black fly webpage and file the complaint form, and that will come directly to my desk. So it doesn't go into some database and disappear. We read all those complaints. So if you have one, you can get on there, fill that out. It'll give you the option of putting a pin on a map so we can see exactly where you're at, and you can explain the situation. One of our biologists will will reply to you with either an email or a phone call. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and I'm free to answer any questions you might have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks very much, Doug. It does look like we have 3 questions for you on WebEx. First question is, how long does BTI last in the water?
Okay, so one of the great things about BTI is, beyond being an organic, it is photodegradable. And photodegradable simply means the sun destroys it. So once we put it in the water, it doesn't bioaccumulate, it doesn't build up in the environment. Once whatever's left that black flies haven't feed on, the sun will destroy within anywhere, depending on, how hot the day is, how intense the sun is. It'll only be in the water for anywhere from hours to a day or two, and then it disappears. So it does not build up in the environment. Very safe product.
Thank you. Second question, if you treat a location one summer, will the black flies be back again the next summer, or how soon will they return?
So one of the major issues we have is, like I mentioned earlier, one female can lay up to 500 eggs. So if you even have 10 around your head, you can imagine how many eggs those females can lay. So we try and hold ourselves to a 90 to 95% mortality rate when we spray a stream or river, but that's still leaving a lot of black flies. But we find if we remove 90 to 95% of the black flies, people will not be pestered by black flies. There'll be few enough in the environment that they won't build up enough to bother humans. However, that still leaves those black flies to lay eggs. Now, the one thing about black flies is here in PA, they can have up to 10 to 12 generations per summer. If we were to try and get them to zero, to completely remove them from the environment, we'd have to use heavy chemicals and broad spectrum chemicals, and we are not going to ever do that. So that's why we hold ourselves to using organic. So unfortunately, we have to treat repeatedly, and we will treat anywhere from 8 to 10 times a year to remove all the generations throughout the summer. And they'll be back again next year. They're amazing, insects. They've been around. We've been doing this for 30 plus years, and we've had to treat every year over the last 30 years. So.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Actually, two remaining questions. The next one is, do black flies bother wildlife and livestock? Any measurable impacts to animal health in agriculture?
Yes, actually, not specifically the species we treat for, they bother humans, but there's multiple species that go after horses, cattle, sheep. Why I showed you the picture of the dog. So the problem with that is here in PA, we do not treat for those species. And a lot of them inhabit the smaller streams that we don't treat. But there are places, especially like in the Midwest, where you can read about cattle actually dying from the number of black flies that come off and swarm them. And they'll basically, take so much blood from those animals that they'll die from shock. So there are a lot of black flies that bother wildlife. Yes, there's also types of black flies that go after chickens and turkeys. So there are places where they can decimate like a chicken house or a turkey house. If enough black flies come off, they can make those sick. In Wisconsin currently, they're having trouble with oh, my mind just went blank. The Not sandhill cranes, but anyways, whooping cranes. They are being attacked by black flies so heavily up there that the population of whooping cranes is declining because they can't sit on the nest long enough to hatch their eggs, or if they do hatch the eggs, then the young are attacked by black flies so heavily that they can die off. So there's some serious issues that black flies cause.
Thank you. And then our last question is, why don't you spray every county? How can I get my county to be sprayed?
Okay, so first of all, not every county has a high enough black fly population to make it feasible to treat. If they aren't there, we aren't going to treat it, of course. Now, there are some counties that have high black fly populations, but for some reason or another, the county has chosen not to participate. We've had several counties drop out over the past several years, some of it because of budget, some of it because maybe there's just not a desire for the county to be in the program, that they don't feel that their county needs that program at the time. But if you do live in a county where you have a black fly problem and the black fly program is not currently doing control work there, you will need to contact your county commissioner and let them know how bad the problem is, and ask that, they contact the black fly program and start discussions with us. They would contact me directly. I manage the program, and I would have discussions with the county commissioners and explain the program with them. I'd do a presentation. We'd go into the county and do a study to find out where the sources of the black flies are, how big the problem is, and what we think the cost would be to both the county and the state to add that county to the current roster of areas that are treated. So that really, resides in the county commissioner's office on whether they participate or not. We don't force counties to participate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that wraps up our talk today. You can find a lot more information on black flies at www.dep.pa.gov/blackfly. We'll have a recording of this talk on that webpage and on Facebook in the next few days. Thank you so much, Doug, and thanks everyone for attending DEP Lunchtime Live.
Thank you.